All right, we are up to fly number 15 of 21 from Mike Valla's Tagging the Founding Flies. This one is called the Michigan Stone. And I know a lot of you Western tyers and fishermen, when you think of stoneflies, you think of big monster dry flies like a stimulator or a sofa pillow tied on a 6 or an 8. But here on the east, we have another stonefly. It's called the yellow Sally, and it's a lot smaller, usually about a 16 or an 18. It's a spring hatch here in the Maryland, usually a month or so before the sulfurs come out. So that's what this fly imitates, and it was created by a rod builder named Paul Young, probably sometime in the 1940s. And we know Chauncey Lively saw an article in Field and Stream about some of the rods that Paul Young was building. He got in touch with him and asked him to build one for his wife. Then the two became friends for the next several decades, and Young must have told Lively about this pattern because we know in February of 1971, Lively wrote an article in Pennsylvania Angler magazine about it. Now this thing is not exactly a forgotten fly, but it has pretty much flown under the radar for the last several decades. And while this is a great pattern to imitate yellow Sallies, you could easily tie this thing a little bit bigger and it would be a great general attractor pattern, and you could probably hang a pretty big nymph off of it. So there's one in the vise, a Michigan Stone, not a whole lot to it, and not really that tricky, except that it's tied pretty small, either a 16 or an 18, and I'm tying these tonight in an 18. Standard length barbless dry fly hook. Let's get that one cleaned off there. You do need to get enough purchase in here so that hook is not going to fly across the room on you, which it almost did right there. That's close enough. Now we're going to use yellow thread. This is a 12/0. It's actually called Primrose, but looks pretty yellow to me. So we'll catch that in and bring it back here to the start of the bend. And this is one of the few dry flies with a hackle on the front and the back. So it's a Grizzly dry fly hackle. And oddly enough, it calls for the back hackle being a little bit longer than the front. You know, probably at least 1.5 times the hook gap. So I'm going to catch it in right there. Take my thread up. I'm probably going to do about 3 or 4 wraps of the back hackle and stop right there where my thread is. So let's go ahead and get rid of this stem. And what I will do, I'll take 3 big open wraps, and remember 3 so I can back them off, and then I'll be right there where we're going to catch this off. So let's go ahead and wrap this 3 or 4 turns to get us right up there to about where the point of the hook is. Okay, I think that's going to be enough hackle in the back, so I'm going to back these 3 wraps off and then catch this off. I'm going to go ahead and catch it off with 3 wraps, and now we'll snip this and save that feather that I just dropped to the table there, because that is going to be enough, in my case anyway, for the front collar hackle. So let's put a little wax on the thread here. And the recipe calls for a yellow rabbit dubbing. I didn't have any yellow rabbit dubbing, but I do have a zonker strip, so I just cut a little inch piece off and use some of this underfur here. Now it won't take much dubbing at all. And pretty thin noodle, and maybe not even an inch long here. So we're just going to give the body some color here. And I do have a couple of barbs going forward. We'll see what they look like after I squish them down next to the hook here. Yeah, they look fine. Now we're going to take a pretty small tuft of fine deer hair, just natural, and it's going to be less than we would use in an elk hair caddis, so go ahead and put that in your stacker. Let's see how this did. I think that's going to be all right. And it's not going to be very long because, well, it can't be very long. This is a size 18 hook. So just try to catch this in, I'd say out there a little bit past the bend of the hook. That should work right there. Let's do a pinch wrap and then a second wrap and take a look. Okay, I think that's going to work, but I need to take my thread a little farther back to make some room to wrap the front hackle. All right, I think we'll be all right with this one. Let's snip this excess. And I'm gonna go ahead and spend a few wraps just to try to flatten this down. It might make it easier to wrap this front hackle. And here's that little bit of feather left over from the back hackle. We'll catch this in with 3 or 4 good tight wraps. And I don't have a whole lot to work with, so I'm gonna grab it with my hackle pliers here. And I'm gonna put at least 4 wraps up here. I might get, make the front just a little bit more hackled than the back. We'll see. If I can get 4 or 5, that should be fine. Just don't want to crowd the eye here. I think that might be 4, and that is plenty. Let's go ahead and catch this off. All right, that's 2 wraps. Let's put another tight one on right there. And then, okay, now I can snip this front piece right here. And I should be able to pull these back just to get a few more wraps to really secure that feather stem and make some room for my whip finish here. And there we go, just the smallest drop of head cement. Make sure you don't fill up that eye right there. And we've got a nice fishable fly. So that's it, my friends. I appreciate you watching. Y'all take care, and we'll see you next time.